Well, on this edition of MSU Today, we're going to talk about Michigan State University's Student Veterans Resource Center. We're going to do that with three individuals. Patrick Forstek is the coordinator of the Student Veterans Resource Center. Emre Amuju is an assistant professor in the Office of Rehabilitation and Disability Studies in the Department of Counseling, Educational Psychology, and Special Education. And Matthew Ritt is an undergraduate student at MSU. He's studying building construction management. Great to have you all here. Patrick, why don't we start with you? Give us a little bit about the history of the center and sort of its mission. What do you do there? What services do you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So the background of the center, so we've been in existence for about 6 years. Back in 2014, Michigan State applied for a grant through the state of Michigan, through the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, and became they brought on a veteran resource representative, and that person sort of started the center, right? They existed until about 2017 when it went from being grant funded to fully funded through the university, and I came on in about 2018. So since then, we've been sort of providing a central hub for, on average, about 400 student veterans and about 2,000 military-connected students and their families who are students at MSU. Additionally, we also work really closely with a lot of faculty and staff in advising roles and in helping out employees at MSU.
And what would you say are some of the unique needs and wants of veterans that make a center like this, necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. So veterans come back to school with a lot of things that make them a little bit different than your traditional students. They typically are more likely to have families, have service-connected disabilities, be a little bit older, live off campus. They're a lot like other non-traditional students, but just their own special twist on it. So my center sort of addresses that by helping them find the resources that they need. MSU already provides a lot of the resources that they might need, things like a Student Parent Resource Center for persons with disabilities. We just help connect them to those resources.
And Matthew, tell me a little bit about what attracted you to the center and what you're getting out of it.
So believe it or not, I was actually sitting in a class in this building. It was COM 100, and someone else who used to work there was also a veteran. Was like, hey, you should come check out the Veterans Center. I had no idea it existed or anything, and I had these huge breaks in between my class, so I was like, why not? I'll come by and stop by. I stopped by there, and I could get snacks there. I could do my printing there. If I had questions about any opportunities on campus or anything going on campus or any help I needed, I could ask Patrick or anyone else that was there. And so it just turned as any questions I had or any needs I needed, it was all just fixed right there at one spot.
A lot of it, the collegiality and just bonding with fellow veterans, is that part of the attraction?
Oh, absolutely. It's like this niche and this thing. It's just knowing that you're with fellow veterans and they're kind of going through the same thing, and they might have done that before, or you may have done that before, and then you guys can help each other, and it's huge. And you go in there, and you might be like, oh, I had this comm class that I'm having trouble with. You're like, oh, I took that last semester. Let me help you with that. And we've had people come in and help with editing, writing essays and stuff, so it's a huge, just if you need help, more or less, you can get it there.
Cool. And Dr. Emre Amuju, tell me what your connection is to the center.
Sure, definitely. I'm actually a research guy, so I'm doing a lot of research on understanding how to improve college adjustment, well-being, life satisfaction, and academic achievement in student veterans, and also veterans with disabilities. So I reached Patrick and then asked hey, can we collaborate and then do some meaningful research to help MSU student veterans to improve their academic achievement, their relationships with faculty, and also help them overall getting an improved well-being and life satisfaction.
There is something called the WellBeing Lab. Is that right that you're involved with? Tell me what that is.
We are trying to do research to help veterans with disabilities or other people with disabilities to improve their well-being. And recently we got a big grant from Department of Education, and it is about $60 million grant, and it is collaboration with UW-Madison. And I am responsible for the veterans piece, so I'm doing some outreach and research to help veterans with disabilities get employment and eventually better quality of life.
And what are you learning in your research so far that's helping you?
Definitely. For specifically, if you look at student veterans with disabilities or without disabilities, actually those who experience disability in academic setting have lower levels of well-being and quality of life. We also found that if we help these student veterans to have better positive emotions, better relationships with peers and faculty, or better sense of accomplishment, they actually get better GPAs. So those are like very meaningful because we can actually develop some interventions to test here at MSU and help these student veterans to increase their positive emotions, positive relationships, meaning in life, sense of accomplishments. Then we can help them to have better academic achievements. So that will also reduce dropout. So when they have higher GPAs, they will be more motivated to, more motivated to stay in the college and also be more persistent in the academic settings. Then eventually they will get better jobs. So that is my goal, to help student veterans with and without disabilities in MSU.
I can hear your passion for helping veterans in your voice. And Patrick, let me back up. What first attracted you to MSU and to the center? Why did you want to come and do this work?
Oh, so my background, my story, and how I got here. I went back to school after the Marine Corps and started working with student veterans. I thought I wanted to be a nurse, and it wasn't my cup of tea. I did okay, but it wasn't what I wanted to pursue. But I really wanted to work with people and give back, and started working in the Student Veterans Resource Center at the school I did my undergrad, and sort of worked up from there. And when an opening popped up at Michigan State University, it was a really good opportunity for me to become part of a much larger university with a very big population. Like I said, we have about, at average, 400 student veterans, but about 2,000 to 2,100 military-connected students. So it's dependents, active duty, guard, reserve, and veterans, obviously, are part of that. It was just a really great opportunity for me to have more of an effect on a larger student population and have more resources at my disposal, working in that resource center.
And Matthew, what would you tell your fellow student Spartan veterans about getting involved with the center?
It's not just for veterans. Like, we'll have tailgates, we'll do a whole bunch of stuff, and just coming out and just seeing, like, yeah, we might be a little older, we might have people see my beard, and sometimes they just get scared away, and we're here the same way as everyone else, just to get our school done, have fun, and at the end of the day, I feel like we're all Spartans. At the end of the day, we might be veteran Spartans, but we all have that in common, and we're all here to do it together.
Do you think there are some common misunderstandings that non-veterans have about veterans?
To speak on myself, I also work at the clothing store Plato's Closet, and being a little older and a veteran, I work with high school kids that are working in clothing and such, and a lot of them have came up to me and were like, when you first started working here, I was a little scared to talk to you because I heard you were in the Navy, and it's just I was like, oh yeah, I mean, that's nothing to be scared about. It's just a different experience. I myself don't come from the Midwest, so I bring a different experience. I bring different stories, and they're very interesting stories that I'm sure if non-veterans just sat back. I know myself, I love talking about my experiences and sharing them. So if you ever was a question you're curious about and you have a class with a veteran, talk them up. And a lot of veterans that come here don't have a lot of people besides maybe the family they come with, or if they grew up around the area. So I know, for myself, I love meeting new people and talking to people and sharing my experiences with them.
Emery, it looked like you had something to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. So I was actually reading and doing some research on that topic, comparing how student veterans versus civilian, students, and how they feel. Sometimes civilian students or faculty may misunderstand how veterans go through academic experience. I highly suggest both faculty and student veterans peers to stop having assumptions and ask questions how you go through how these student veterans go through this specific experience in academic setting. So we can, help each other, and then we can talk and then understand each other. That way we will have, I think, much more meaningful relationship and, experience in the academic setting in higher education.
Patrick, maybe for you, how can people joining in on our conversation help and support the center?
Oh, yeah. So the center, our programming, everything we do throughout the year relies heavily on donor funding. So that's where we need the most support. So to give you an example, so we plan a handful of events every year. We do our fall welcome back picnic, where we provide tents and bounce houses for the kids, food and raffle items. We usually do a very large Veterans Day, a series of events, typically a brunch, and then some workshops around that. And then in the spring, we do our large spring banquet for our graduating veterans, where we give them their red, white, and blue honor cords. That's the best way you can support, or just reaching out to our office. Sometimes we have opportunities for, especially people listening in, faculty, staff, people out in the community to get involved in other ways that aren't just funding related. We're always looking for new and exciting partnerships and ways to get our veterans engaged on campus and in the community.
And real easy place to go, veterans.msu.edu. Am I correct with
Absolutely.
the URLs?
And exciting enough, we're working on a new website soon that should be out in the next couple months. So
Sweet.
we'll have a fancy new website. Same URL, though.
Yeah. Well, let me ask each of you, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to add that you want to get out there? And Emre, I'll start with you.
Sure, definitely. The first thing is, I think, for student veterans, especially, sometimes research also says, they are not willing to seek help when they need help. So I highly suggest, student veterans, whenever they need help, I think they can reach, their faculty, counseling centers or disability offices to get accommodations. Because when they have accommodations, they can get actually better, services to be more successful. And the second thing is, I think I want to reach all Michigan community and then tell them, these students are our heroes. So if they are a veteran and graduated from, university and they are very successful, they really need to help our office to donate, and we can help our student veterans in much more meaningful way. And they don't need to be a veteran, but anyone who graduates from, university or college can really donate, the Student Veterans Center. Then we can actually get better, services, better resources for student veterans who actually served this country in the past.
Matthew Ritt, what would you like people to know about the Student Veterans Resource Center?
Yeah, well, trying to talk on what I've said a little earlier, I'd say just to start with, just say hi, just ask a veteran you see, just how's it going? I mean, both sides coming talking to younger students and then being a veteran, we both have stuff to share. There's so many veterans that have been in stressful environments that know how to get through that. So when students have exam week and they're I'm so stressed out, reach out to a veteran in your class that you're hey, when you were dealing with stress, how did you get through it? I know I've asked younger students when I've had problems with something like Google Docs or the whole all that new technology stuff, having to submit stuff online or anything. I've had to ask multiple times for help. But I also have had other students hey, I'm trying to, get through my homework. I'm having trouble balancing all this. Have you ever worked with that? I'm oh yeah, absolutely. So they just reach out and help. And then if you ever find yourself in the Student Resources building, come stop by and say hi, ask how can I help out? Even if you just leave the name for the next time we have a volunteer event, we could email you and say, hey, this is what we have going on. So first step is just ask, just reach out.
I love it, Spartans. Well, and Patrick, last word for you. What would you like people to know about MSU's Student Veterans Resource Center?
Oh my gosh, I always like to end on a high note and bragging. We were preparing some of this Veterans Day programming and stuff, and I had some nice data points I want to share. So the 11%, the graduation rate for veterans nationally is about 11%, which there's some issues with that data, and it's probably a little bit higher than that if we're being honest. But MSU comes in well over 70% with our student veterans, and it's something that it's been like that for a while. I like to take some credit for it in my office, but I don't know how much I can really take because our student veterans come back and they do a really great job. They're phenomenal students, and the majority of them are first generation. They're doing this for the first time. Just phenomenal academic performance from them. So,
well, Patrick, really appreciate your efforts on behalf of our veteran students, and thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we were talking with Dr. Emre Amuju. He's an assistant professor in the Office of Rehabilitation and Disability Studies in the Department of Counseling, Educational Psychology, and Special Education at MSU. Matthew Ritt is a student veteran himself, studying building construction management, and Patrick Forstek is the coordinator of the Student Veterans Resource Center. And again, everything we talked about can be found at veterans.msu.edu. And Patrick and Matthew, particularly to you, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Russ White. This is MSU Today.